Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
私がそれを見る限りでは全部を信用することはできないんです。ただ文章はやはりマリを連れて行った人が書いたものだと思います。
本日宮崎勉の3名の死刑を執行しました。
これが人間としてこんなことがどうしてできるの？
Many of you might be familiar with anime or manga and might even have some favorites, like mine is Naruto. But are you familiar with the anime killer? In the late summer of 1988, struck the most notorious killer in Japanese history, Tsutomu Miyazaki. This was not any normal person, but a twisted-minded individual. Many of you might know him through his various crimes on YouTube or by his various other nicknames, such as the Rat Man, the Little Girl Killer, the Human Dracula, anime/manga killer, or the most common, the Otaku Killer. For those of you who don't know what an otaku means, otaku is a Japanese term for a young person who is very interested and knows a lot about computers, computer games, anime, manga, animated films, and etc., but may find it difficult to talk to people in real life. Miyazaki did crimes so heinous, he single-handedly wronged the name otaku and made this generally non-offensive term very offensive. We'll go through the real-life locations of his crimes, his home, we'll uncover the footage and evidence from his trial. The content is mainly original footage from the Japanese media outlets, the disgusting letters written to the victims' families, and bits of his interrogation used against him. Of course, there is nothing here that is worth getting me banned off YouTube, but it is worth your discretion. I would request you to leave now if you are easily disturbed by grotesque things. Most of the clips in this video are taken from this channel and this video, and this was very helpful in my research. It would mean a lot if you could check them out and also check my other channels and videos. Without further ado, let's begin.
1934. Logic der Forschung. How are we going to kill our project today? There's one out there for everybody. The JFK assassination, the fake moon landing, the Freemason, chemtrails, CIA mind control, rigged election, Area 51, the aliens beneath the White House, who run international banking.
There is a lot to uncover, so let's start with his childhood. Miyazaki was born into a wealthy family which had a newspaper company that was very successful in Japan, which was later discontinued for obvious reasons. He claimed his parents were very busy but strict on him and wanted him to be a successful person, but he was not able to be open because he was born with a condition where his hand joints and wrists were fused together. This heavily affected his studies, but not enough because he was still passing with flying colors. So he wasn't born with the best of circumstances, and it seems in high school, because he was bullied a lot, his grades dropped significantly and he wasn't able to get into his ideal university. So he joined a junior college and started to picture female tennis players and started to get obsessed with R-rated magazines. And through here, he went on a dangerous path and went on to seek child pornography. The only person that supported Miyazaki and loved him was his grandfather. They both grew very close while everybody else in the family was busy working. But in 1998, his grandfather passed away, and this caused him to fall into further depression. Many believe that this was the tipping point that spurred him on to create the worst crimes in Japanese history. His four victims were Mari Kono, aged 4, Masami Yoshizawa, aged 7, Erika Namba, aged 4, and Ayoko Nomoto, aged 5. His first murder was on August 22nd, 1988, one day after his birthday, and in his twisted mind, this was his birthday gift to himself. Taking the life of Mari Kono, a 4-year-old girl playing in her friend's house. He led her to his car where he drove under a bridge, and after a half-hour conversation, he strangled her and then performed the act of necrophilia and dumped her body in the hills near his house. He let the body decompose for a while and took the limbs as a sort of trophy for himself in his home. He burned the rest of Mari's bones and put the ashes in a box, along with some of her teeth that he sent to the family. Attached to the box was a postcard that read, Mari, cremated, bones, investigate, proof. This letter and other postcards he sent were delivered under an alias name Yuko Imada. The media actually sent a statement that those bones were not Mari's. This led to her mother making a statement that she was still hopeful that her daughter was still out there.
私がそれを見る限りでは全部を信用することはできないんです。ただ文書はやはりマリを連れて行った人が書いたものだと思います。これが人間としてこんなことがどうしてできるの？
遺骨の中に手と足がなかったような気がするんです。そうしますと天国に行っても歩けないんです。物を食べることもできないんです。ぜひもしあるんであれば全部返していただきたい。そして天国で歩けるように食べられるようにしてあげたいと思います。
After the airing of this footage, this was the long letter he sent.
The person who sent that box full of bones to Mari Kono's house was indeed me. Everything about this Mari-chan case was orchestrated by me. There's a reason I am writing this letter, exposing the truth to you right now. Firstly, the bones inside the box are without a doubt Mari's bones, and here's the proof. I drowned her in a nearby river. The other day I saw on TV that based on the false information given by the police, Mari-chan's mother stated she still has hope, and when I saw that, I felt a sense of urgency to clean this matter up myself. At this rate, they will truly for all eternity never know Mari's whereabouts, and thus I am writing this confession letter today. Those bones are truly Mari-chan's. Thank you so much for having a funeral. Thanks to you, my kin, all of them, are finally able to go to the grave. I will have to ask God for a battle. I will have to hit God with the hard task to not get me captured for 15 years and grant my wish to meet children who want to meet me. That is the only way for humans to fight God.
Please note that his grammar wasn't the best in Japanese, so these letters were pretty difficult to decipher even back then. This letter was a message from Tsutomu that was him taunting the parents without remorse and sending a message to the world that he would like to continue this act for 15 years. Note, in the trial, he denied ever making an alias Yuko Imada and said that that was something not his style. And this was the first time he heard that this Imada person was on the news. This murder was committed on the 3rd of October of 1988 and the victim was 7-year-old Masami Yoshizawa. Miyazaki spotted her on the road and asked her for a ride, which she agreed to. He then sped up and took her to the same location as Mari and killed her. He took the clothes and went home.
もう憎さもあるけども、一つも手を挙げて宮崎叩けなかったと、これがちょっとね、本当に許してもらえるもんなら、まさみが苦しかったその思いをね、同じように味わしてやりたいですよ。
Erika was a 4-year-old who was returning home from her friend's house on the 12th of December 1988. This time he forced her into the car, took her pictures in a driving lot before killing her. He tied her hands and feet and then covered the body with a bedsheet in his trunk and let the body decompose in a wood nearby. 3 days later, the body was recovered. On December 20th, he sent a letter to the family that read, Erika, cold, cough, throat, rest, death. On June 6, 1989, Tsutomu spotted 5-year-old Ayako in a park near a tennis court playing alone. He went up to her, took off the lens cap and asked Ayako if he could take pictures, and she said yes. After taking many photos, he lured her into the car to take more. He put her in the back seat where he strangled her. She died soon after. He taped the mouth, tied the hands, and wrapped her body in the trunk. He brought the body back to the house where he did things that I would not like to go over. You should get an idea from the kind of guy he is.
So this is the location of where he took one of his victims. He would take his car and zoom through here, which as you can see, no cars can go through here. They've completely blocked all of this off. What I assume was what happened, he would accelerate, take the car up there. It actually wraps around this power plant here on the right, and he would take her to the woods and do his business there. I'm not exactly sure if we're even allowed to go in there even without a car. I wouldn't. It also says no parking here either. I have a feeling that all these signs have a purpose, and that is because of this case. You cannot park here. This road's closed off. In fact, I don't even think people can go in. So, you know, picture says 1,000 words. I feel what happened here, and it's not comforting at all.
With all the victims, Miyazaki continued to bombard the victims' families, confessing the ways he killed them. It is said that he went as far as to call them on the phone. When the family picked up the phone, he breathed into the phone, not speaking. And when they would hang up, he would continue doing this for up to 20 minutes, waiting for them to pick up again. On July 23, 1989, he spotted two sisters in a park in Hachioji, Tokyo, and convinced the younger sister to go with him. The elder one stayed behind and ran to tell the father the situation, that her sister went off with a stranger. Meanwhile, Miyazaki didn't go too far and was taking pictures of the girl after stripping her in the woods. The father reached the location in time and beat up Miyazaki, trying to keep the daughters under distance. Miyazaki ran without his car. The father called the police, where they waited to arrest him. Miyazaki left his car at the spot. Later, when he came to take back the car, that was where the police arrested him.
This is where Miyazaki got arrested. So he found two girls that were hanging out actually over here. There used to be a playground which is now demolished. He parked his car here, he walked up there, and then that's where the little girls would be playing. And he brought one of them back here. There's a little road, and the little girl ran to go get her dad. And the dad ran up, went into the woods and found him, attacked him, and he left his car here. Then the dad called up the police. The police were waiting here for him. And Miyazaki came back, picked up his car, or was trying to pick up his car, but they arrested him on the spot. So this is where Miyazaki's killings ended officially.
The police went to his house, where they found over 5,000 videos of anime and slasher films. Among these were pictures and footage of what he had done to the girls. When the evidence was found, Miyazaki was unfazed by all of this and even added the fact that he really likes horror films. He was arrested, and soon his face was shown on television, causing a national uproar.
While we were at this location, there was a sign that blocked off the area and a security camera. A few people also were eyeing us, staring at the empty lot. Honestly, if one came by this area not knowing what happened, you wouldn't think much of it, but given the context, it was eerie to say the least. Even the field that Miyazaki would burn the bodies in was still operating. During investigation, police sectioned off the home and dug through the field across from his house, where they found a skull of one of the victims, as well as the furnace he used to burn the parts.
The media had told him, and the nation of Japan had become disgusted at his crimes. His obsession with anime had labeled him the Otaku murderer, and began the stigma of anime fans across Japan. The case had ruined the family name, and his father was so disgusted, he didn't want to even pay for the attorney. During his trial, Miyazaki's story jumped between the truth, lies, superstition, and everything in between. In one of his interrogations, he blamed his action on what he called the Ratman, an alter ego whom Miyazaki claimed forced him to kill. He had been interviewed by 3 psychiatrists. The first one deemed him to be sane and completely aware of his actions. The second one said he had schizophrenia before his crimes, but could determine good versus bad, yet slightly couldn't control himself, deeming him sane. The third psychiatrist said that he had multiple personality disorder, including his alias name that he used to write the letters to the families. They found him to have a total of 4 personalities, which all lacked determining good versus bad, which resulted in him not fully sane. Later on, the book, which had been published, revealing the full interrogation.
How were your parents? They screamed a lot. What kind of sounds would they make? Large background noises. Did you think they were fighting? I guess. I mean, they certainly weren't doing vocal exercises. How big was your other self? Slightly smaller, maybe 90% of me. Where is he standing now? About a meter away from me. Have you ever tried to stop or question your other self from doing what they were doing? He didn't seem that nervous, and I found that strange. And how did you feel watching him? I kinda was just nervously watching him. So your other self is the one that was going around stealing, touching flesh, and reconfiguring bodies? Yeah, he was kind of steadily doing all of that.
Sorry to interrupt, but this is the suspicious part. Psychologists state that they were suspicious because Miyazaki stated that he can see another version of himself committing these crimes. But psychiatric studies say that that would totally go over the idea of schizophrenia and multiple personality disorder because people who have these can't tell what they're doing.
Times did you see the Rat Man? About 3 or 4 times. And for every time you'd see the Rat Man, how many of them would come out? About 10 of them, and they'd all surround me. How big are they? The faces are larger than a regular human, and they're just big in general. How tall are they? Like this big?
Miyazaki basically said that he never killed the girls, but the Rat Man did.
Man came out, the girls would fall over and lose consciousness.
After the entire interrogation and after seeing 3 psychiatrists, the court was unconvinced that Miyazaki had multiple personality disorder and was instantly put on the death row. The court agreed with the first psychiatric evaluation stating that he was completely sane and that he committed the crimes to fulfill his sick sexual desires. One of his motives was that he desired to make a rare video to add to his large collection of pornography. He was denied the insanity plea and was sentenced to death.
本日山崎義雄、六田真治、宮崎勉の3名の死刑を執行しました。慎重にも慎重に検討を加えた結果、この3名を粛々と執行させていただくことに決めたわけで、正義の実現のために法の支配する国をしっかり守っていくために粛々と死刑を執行しております。
The working of the Japanese death sentence is pretty controversial. The sentence is completed by hanging, and the inmate is never told the date of his death until the day of his death. This has been a controversial method that has been on and off in Japan for quite some time. On the date of the death, he is brought to write a will with a priest. This part is optional. They are then sent into the death chamber where a bag is placed over their head to catch any fluids, and 3 policemen exit out of the room. They all line up at a button in front of each of them. The trapdoor is randomly wired to one of the buttons, and when given the signal, the policemen press the button at the same time in order to ease the burden by not knowing who is committing the death sentence. After it, whether they are content with it or not, they are immediately sent on a week's vacation to ease their minds. Though, in this case, very little to no people felt any sympathy nor burden of wishing on his death, and he was hanged to death in the Tokyo detention house in 2008. No one knows his exact final words, but in the chamber, it is said that some people say that his final words to his psychiatrist were,
Tell the world that I was a good person.
When the death was confirmed, the detention house contacted the mother of Tsutomu Miyazaki and offered her to collect the ashes. She refused and said the sickest burn till date, literally
I'll
said.
leave the cleaning up to you.
Japanese online forums suggest that his ashes might be buried in an ulcerate in the Soshigai's cemetery, where it's believed all death row inmates are buried. You cannot access it, and it doesn't even have a name for the building, perhaps for good reasoning. Even in death, Miyazaki's spirit will stay locked up with not even a tombstone to commemorate it. As mentioned before, the case ruined the Miyazaki family name. The father was said to have sold his house and land to help compensate to the victims' families. He immediately committed suicide, which is rumored to be on a bridge called the Jindai Bridge, and the mother is said to have lived on in secrecy after the case. The older sister is said to have been forced to quit her job, and even the uncles of Tsutomu Miyazaki retired and even divorced their wives to save the reputations of the wives by not making them part of the tainted Miyazaki family name. The successful newspaper company was officially shut down, and every area related to this case was either destroyed or blocked off by the Japanese government. The case was closed, and people moved on like it was a bad dream. It can be said that no one will miss Miyazaki because he was a monster that did not show remorse till the end. Not only did he kill young children, but he also taunted their families with calls and letters. There has been no news of the victims since the case, and that was for good reason. One can only hope they have done their best to get past this tragedy and live their lives as normal as they could have. After this case, there was a stigma placed on anime and manga lovers, otakus in general, in not only Japan but the rest of the world for a few years. This went on to the internet with the stigma not that alive today. And in recent years, anime has become more mainstream and is headed in a direction now that some would call a complete 180 of what it was before. Even the word otaku has been morphed out of the slur and into a trend. It is because of stories like these that it was publicly difficult to announce that you were an anime fan, and back then it was harder to separate the word killer from otaku, especially after a name like the Otaku Killer. Miyazaki was a killer that just happened to be otaku, and for those concerned, Japan has taken the label better in recent years. People everywhere are comfortable with being open on liking anime, but everyone can agree that this man was sick, twisted individual. And to know more about these sick, twisted individuals and other conspiracies, stay tuned on the Finisher Theorist. And if you guys like this video, you can press that like button and subscribe. While you're out there, you can check out tech news on the Finisher Theorist and the Naruto Fortnite montage on the Finisher Gaming. This was the Finisher Theorist, and I will see you next time. Bye for now.
I love everything. Fire spreading all around my room. My world's so bright, it's hard to breathe, but that's alright.